And we're in the home stretch, and we've got, in continuing our tradition of today, two more excellent speakers. One, Jen Adair, is an attorney, Northwestern University graduate, and has been on the Columbus School Board in 3 years, not one. She wasn't smart enough to get off after 3 years as board president. So she's dealt with some hot issues, plus a long experience working for Department of Administrative Services. And Laura is an independent consultant, but has had a lot of experience in K through 12 and universities. And I think they're going to give you some interesting perspectives because as you might notice, I'm a baby boomer with a little bit of gray hair. How I look at things and issues are a little different than the under 40. And that's one of the issues facing, I think, employers all over Ohio. So I'm now going to turn it over to Jen and Laura. And again, appreciate your great attention and great questions. Don't be shy.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And I've been here all day, so I know how hot we are in this room, asking questions and participating. And so I expect that even though we are the last session, you are high on candy and sugar now, and we're going to have a really great time talking about generational diversity, especially in the workplace. So I think my mic might be too high. Am I getting feedback? No? Okay, I'll leave it. So I am Jen Adair. It is so great to be back in a room full of a lot of government people. I miss you all so much. I got to see some of my former state of Ohio colleagues. So it's so great to be back with all of you. And I'm with Laura, who is amazing, and I'll let her introduce herself real quickly.
My name is Laura Krause, and I am a veteran of working in higher ed. I worked at Ohio State in the undergraduate admissions office for a number of years. I read applications. I worked with low-income kids and first-generation students to get them to college, which then had a transition to a nonprofit called I Know I Can, which serves Columbus City Schools, Reynoldsburg, Southwestern City Schools, and then kind of transitioned to be on my own. I am a Columbus City parent, so I know Jen, or actually I should say Jen knows me from the many emails the school board has probably received from me over the years. I have one who's a 12th grader and a Columbus City grad who's now a junior down at Ohio University. Jen and I came together to talk about motherhood and some other things. And we came upon this presentation by kind of talking about our kids. And Jen has 2 Gen Alphas, and I have
a cusper. Yeah. 2 cuspers, really. Maybe.
2 cuspers.
We'll talk about that.
And I have 2 kids who are firmly planted in Gen Z, and you're going to learn all about them today.
So this is a topic that, truth, you all know a lot about and you're experts in because you are all part of a generation. So we are going to be doing a lot of discussion today, a lot of we call them table talks. So you're going to be talking with your friends at the table. These are our objectives today. You also have an outline. It's more of a fill-in-the-blank outline, so if you want to take notes in it, you can. In your folder. We're also going to be using polls and questions. So you have, as you know, because you've done this all day, on the middle of your table you have some QR codes that we definitely want you to get ready and scan. We're going to start off with a poll. Let's figure out who's in the room and what generation you're in. So the generations, go ahead and scan the QR code on the table. And we're going to see who we are in this room and what generations we represent. If you don't know the years are up there. It's also in your packet. So let's see. Looks like we have a lot of Xers, millennials, and some boomers. Xers seems to be the most, maybe? Are you all changing? You're like, I don't want to be that. All right. I thought we had a silent. I got excited for a minute. Okay. All right, awesome. That helps kind of Laura.
Somebody was silent for a second.
Silent for a second. Okay. All right, awesome. So we have, it looks like 3 of our generations represented here. I don't think we have, Gen Z is actually on here, but I can't see it. You're Gen Z! Yay! Welcome! Oh, I love that. Okay, any other, I can't see, any other Gen Zers? Okay, oh, in the back, okay. Guys, sit in the back. All right, awesome. All right, she's like, yes, my people! Okay. All right, so another thing that we're going to do today is talk about our workplaces. And I know, because I've been in this room all day with you, that you are sitting with your friends. You're sitting with your colleagues. So what we need you to do right now is to split yourself up. Because look, we need to learn from one another. And I need you to learn from other workplaces, okay? So on the honor system, I just want you to take a second and some of your friends move to a different table. Just split up, please. And you're all doing it. So I need like, I'm going to take 60 seconds for us to just, you can leave your stuff where it is. Just go join a different table, go to a different workplace so that you can learn about what's going on there. Thank you for all of you who just did it. Okay, and as you're moving, we're going to multitask here. Just join another table. On the QR code where you can ask questions, I want you to scan that one. And I want you to type in, what is the biggest generational challenge you are having in your workplace? So we're multitasking. We're moving, we're meeting new people, we're scanning the QR code, and we are answering this question, the biggest generational challenge you are having in your workplace. Just hold them because we're going to actually. All right, that is, you can keep answering that question. We're going to actually come back to that question at the end to discuss. All right. All right.
Type it in.
Yeah. Go ahead and answer that question. I'm going to turn it over to Laura now, who's going to walk us through understanding the generations.
Okay, I'm going to try a trick here that they do it in K-12. Okay, thank you. Many years in a high school in front of a group of people, so please forgive me, my little trick. Okay, we're going to introduce now each of the generations to you, and we didn't want to speak at you because that would be boring. And we also didn't want to, I'm Gen X, I didn't want to stand up here and tell you about a boomer, for example, or give my opinion about millennials or Gen Z. So Jen and I spent a little time going through TikTok, and we have some great ones. And in their own words, we're going to present to you the silent generation through Gen Z. At the end, I'm going to talk about Gen Alpha. Those are the littlest ones that we have. And we have 3 Gen Zs here in the room, right?
3 or 4.
2 or 3, okay. And we'll wrap up with Gen Alpha a little later. There is no shortage of generational TikToking. If any of you are on TikTok, that seems to be sort of an obsession of TikTokers to talk about generations, right? So, okay, boomer. There's a lot of discussion of millennials, etc. But one note about the videos that we're going to present to you. They are in people's own words. And one of those words includes a pretty good shot at a curse word. So I wanted to warn you that, but you people work for the state, so I'm figuring that you can handle the word that is presented. And it happens to be in the Gen X video, which makes a lot of sense. So without further ado, let's go ahead. We've got a little moment of pause.
think probably the way we were brought up as far as our parents coming out of the Depression, we had more of a feeling toward security as far as going out and trying to make a dollar and keep a dollar. Less waste, just doing everything right. Kind of try to plan ahead for what might happen and try to be ahead of it.
We had a tech issue on that one, so Justin over here figured it out so you could hear it. Thank you.
I think the way we were brought up as far as our parents coming out.
The kind of husband I want, he has to be able to support me because I've already picked out the house that I want to live in. It's right across the street from where I live now, and I just love it. He has 4 bedrooms, and it's a split level.
Actually, I'm not worried about what we think of ourselves now. After this TV show, I'm just worried about what the rest of the country thinks about us. And I hope they don't get the impression that we're too much snobbish. I mean, we may be snobbish a little bit, but heck, we haven't known that much else.
Everything that I've done has been geared to being accepted into a college because, son, if you don't go to college, you're not going to be anything in life. And
I'm sure the parents of each individual child are going to be proud if the student makes A+s all the way through and gets accepted to some fantastic university. They're going to be proud. And on the other hand, they're going to also be disappointed if he doesn't.
Well, I think that my main goal is to become financially a success, and by this I mean that so I can support my family handsomely and have 2 cars, have a home 2-story house, and have sort of a high status with my friends.
I don't want to be, just dig a ditch for the rest of my life. I want to be successful. A lot of people say that they just be successful doing anything. Well, that's true. But I'd kind of like to make some money in my life. I mean, being quite honest.
So I get this question a lot. What's a Gen X? We're nothing special. Just the coolest generation that ever lived, if you ask me. Born between the years of 1965 and 1980. Yes, the 80s were our playground. But beyond that, we're the latchkey kids. And if you don't know what a latchkey kid is, just imagine your parents putting a key around your neck at the age of 6 or 7 so you can let yourself in after school because there aren't any daycares and nobody's home. We had chores to do and we had to make our own dinner. Sometimes just out of a couple slices of white bread and some ketchup, maybe a bowl of cereal. And we put ourselves to bed. But not until we'd spent hours on the phone talking to our friends and digesting copious amounts of inappropriate television and music entertainment. All without adult supervision. We got ourselves up in the morning and got ready for school. And then we ventured out into the world alone. We're basically the equivalent of your parents dropping you off in the middle of the woods with a butterfly knife and a pack of matches, and you somehow come out building a Starbucks. Yeah, we may not be very special, but we are definitely survivors. We're resilient as fuck, we got a wicked sense of sarcastic humor, and we don't care about much. Oh, and we're totally okay being alone. We actually kind of like it that way. It's when we're at our best.
Proof millennials have it the hardest.
Millennials will be the first generation since the 1800s that are worse off than their parents in American history. We are overeducated, overworked, lonely, depressed, and poor in almost every metric across the board. First up, will be? No. Millennials are the first generation since the 1800s, okay? It's not will. We are already feeling this way, okay? I can attest to this as a millennial. And I mean, I'm like in the middle, purebred millennial. I feel this in my heart and in my soul, okay? Definitely overeducated, overworked. Can be lonely sometimes. I've been depressed more times than I can count. Definitely been poor these days, and it's sad. Compared to other generations that were before us, unfortunately, we're just not doing as well as they were. But we did live through a lot of unprecedented events, okay? And we were told this dream, the American dream, that is technically a scam. You're supposed to graduate from college, find a great job, find you a husband, have some kids, and have the perfect life. That's not how, and buy a house, which none of us can afford. It's just not, it's not in the cards for a lot of us. Some of us, yeah, have all the good things and all the bad or whatever, but a lot of us, we're like this, okay? Struggling. The struggle bus is real out here.
I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course I need all these electronics. Hello? I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course I'm gonna need some talkies. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course I can't write in cursive. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course, no matter how hot or cold it is, I'm going to wear a hoodie. I'm I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course we can be a little entitled. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course my mom said she was born in 89, basically means she was born in the 1600s. It's giving slavery. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course, everywhere I go, I'm gonna be TikToking. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course I'm wearing Crocs. I'm a Gen Z kid. Of course everything in my bathroom is from Shein or Amazon.
So that obviously were Gen Z kids, not the Gen Z professionals in the room. But you probably relate to some of that, I'm sure. She's got Crocs.
Okay, so we want you to discuss at your tables your reactions to the videos. Obviously, there were some stereotypes, but there were also some nuggets we think might resonate with you. And then we're going to do some sharing out. So we'll give you 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Yep. So talk to your table mates and what resonated with you in those videos. What was like in comparing some of the videos, compare and contrast?
Thank you.
First of all, millennials, we're sorry. Like that was depressing. But we also, one of the things we pointed out is two of us are a very early and a very early millennial, very late Gen X, and we feel different from all of that because we're that group that saw a huge swing, so we saw it both ways. Like we were before tech, after tech, and everything else.
Who's born between 77 and 82? Me too. Hi, we're Xennials. That's what he's talking about. We are a little micro generation in between. And in between generations, cuspers are really important, no matter where you are, because actually in the workplace, they can serve as a bridge between two generations because they understand both.
Actually, there's one called Generation Jones, if you've heard of it. It's at the beginning of just before Gen X, from 60 to 65. Okay.
So early, when they started defining generations, they made the Xennial category, and it was defined as having an analog childhood and a digital adulthood, and that is exactly how we grew up. And so we have the best of both worlds.
That's right. All right. So we kind of started off in this way because I think when we talk about generations, a lot of times we do get stuck in the stereotypes. And really, when we are talking about generations, especially when we talk about it at work, and we understand that there's a lot of challenges, so don't forget, if you do have challenges, we were collecting those, so keep on doing your scan. It's in the workplace, it kind of shows up differently, and we have to remember that when we do talk about them, we have to be careful about using stereotypes, right? I think what's important to really understand is, why are there generational differences? We know that there are. Even the stories that you heard, like if you think about that boomer video versus the millennial video, did it not feel opposite about like what was being said? Or that, things that the boomers were kind of in their youth trying to measure as success was something that felt out of reach for generations later, right? And so we have these kind of spots of conflict, and we're going to talk about why that might happen. Why are generations actually different? Not just that you happen to be part of one and you're born at a different time, but there's actual people who study this sort of thing, and we thought it'd be interesting to talk to you a little bit more about it academically. So the first theory is from a psychologist named Jean Twenge, and she wrote a book, and we've provided the citations for these things at the back of your packet too. And instead of this idea, and Laura's going to talk about another theory that's based on kind of major events, right? We kind of know the major events tie and bind generations. Twenge really focuses on this idea of technology and what technology has done. So technology, I know, like immediately we're like technology. We've talked a lot about it today. We've talked about AI. But really everything is technology from the time like humans came on the earth, right? Anything that was created to improve or make things more efficient or faster is technology, right? And so the theory that Twenge has is all about this idea of the rapid advancement of technology and the way that it changes, and the way that it changes how we move into adulthood, and how fast we move into adulthood, or how slow we move into adulthood. She also focuses on the fact that with more advancements in technology, we have become less collective as a society and more individual. And so we're seeing that reflected in our generations as well. This is a model, and if you Google this, this is the one that will come up for you, that kind of talks about what this all means. And so when we have more technology, things are easier. So, we are not anymore in the days of, a lot of people have their own washing machines, right? So we're not spending all day, washing our clothes in the river, right? So we've gotten time back, right? Or the way that we grow food, right, is changed. We don't have to farm like we used to. We have a lot of technology. Even farming is way different and high tech now, right? And so the way that we have more free time in our life, we call it free time, but what are we then using that time for? We're not doing all of these things that we were doing before as a society. We also don't need each other as much, right? Because it used to be collective farming. We'd go and wash our clothes together. We'd make food together. We would hunt together. We would do these things together. And so we have become more individualistic as a society. And so as children grow, and we'll see this through the different generations, and especially when we hit different kind of points in life, some generations grow slower into adulthood, right? So the millennials got a lot of backlash for living in basements, right, of your parents, moving back in with your parents. So you didn't actually grow up, and we have extended educational opportunities. So it takes more education to be a professional, right? So you aren't out there yet until maybe your mid-20s, when in previous generations, you didn't finish high school. I know like today we're like really, we have to have a 100% graduation rate. We've never had a 100% high school graduation rate, ever. So this idea that life slows down and when you become an adult is different based on the technologies. And so this is a major difference in each of the different generations. So really quickly, let me just talk about the different technologies that enhance. And remember, like technology builds. So every generation had the technology of the ones before, right? And so every generation, Twenge has a quote in her book that says, every generation thinks the one after them is so soft. Life is so much easier for them. They don't know what we had to go through, right? When in some cases it's very true, right? But things also get harder, which we'll learn when we get to talk about the Gen Alphas. So for our silent generations, which we don't have any here in the room today, a lot of the home appliances that we take for granted every day were new. New technologies, microwaves, dishwashers, these things that made life at home easier. And that changed the way women then were able to kind of be. And we saw more women be able to do more things outside the home because they weren't taking care of the hours of their day, just weren't taken up. Radio and TV, obviously. And some major events that happened, Great Depression, World War II. Our boomers, they had TV as a child. And so Laura will talk a little bit more about this. Really, your generational kind of things bind you when you're kind of in upper adolescence, kind of high school type age, when you are really more conscious about what's happening in the world. That's the time period that kind of binds you. Boomers also experienced air conditioning, which, that's now we would never live without air conditioning, and birth control. So that again changed the way that women kind of had more freedom and became able to do additional things outside of the kind of home world. Big events were Cold War, Watergate, and the sexual revolution. Our Gen Xers, who are the middle children of all the generations, sometimes they don't even get talked about. You go from boomer to millennial, and you forget about Gen Xers. The TV, they were native. You're native on TV, right? So you remember as a kid, a little kid, TV being in your house. But internet was something that was more when you became a teenager to in your kind of 20s. And social media as an adult. So social media is huge. We just had a whole session on social media, and for us, a lot of us in the room, that is not native. We learned it, but it is native. It is native to the younger generations. This is like their world, and Laura's going to talk about that a little bit later. For millennials, Gen Xers, divorce rates went up, and we had the end of the Cold War. Millennials, internet continued to grow, social media, and smartphones. Smartphones were the thing that the millennials, 9/11 and the Great Recession were the two big things the millennials had. And Gen Z, they're complete tech natives, right? My Gen Zers, you just know. You know no world that was analog. It's all digital. You just don't even know what that word means. My Gen Z Alpha Cusper, we were talking about floppy disk. She has no clue what a floppy disk is. Rotary phone? No idea. Making a mixtape? Not a clue. These things just do not exist in her world. COVID-19 for Gen Z was one of those moments. The whole political, even now continuing with the whole Donald Trump and George Floyd, all of that kind of social unrest was a big thing. And our Gen Alpha, who we're going to learn a lot more about Laura later, but the big thing that they're going to be dealing with is AI, which we just learned all about today, right? That's going to be their thing. And so each of these different technologies changes the way that we approach the world and that we interact with the world and our expectations. And so this kind of driver changes the way that generations kind of come into play with each other, and especially in the work environment. So this is the first theory. This is the book. It's a great book. And she goes through actually each one of the generations in a lot of detail. She did a lot of research talking about even depression rates and just comparing gender identity, just philosophy and what's going on in the world in each of these time periods. So highly recommend it. All right, so Laura's going to talk about
Strauss-Howe. So twenge is the most recent generational theory. She's the most up to date. That book was published in 2023, so last year. Just came out, it made kind of a big splash. She was challenging the work of William Strauss and
Neil Howe.
Yes, that's correct. So Strauss and Howe posited that every 80 years, there's a recurrent cycle that goes on throughout history. And there are specific behavior patterns that kind of that align themselves in 20-year increments. According to this theory, the 80-year cycle is crucial. Every 4 generations is associated with a crisis, some sort of big crisis. Generally, Jen was pointing out earlier today, it's a war. And that impacts the ongoing social order and then creates a completely new one. So after the crisis comes a high, a period of stability. And you know, if we kind of think of World War II as, maybe let's start there with our crisis, the period of stability was the late 40s, early 50s. And we can argue about whether that really was a great time to be alive sometime later, but it was a period of stability. Middle class was created during that time. The GI Bill came online. Lots of college education surged. It was a period of stability. Interestingly enough, one of the criticisms of Howe and Strauss is that it's not always a period of stability. My dad immigrated to this country in 1950, and he got out of Italy because things were falling apart over there after the war. So it just depends on where you are. One of the criticisms of Strauss and Howe is that it's kind of an American sort of look at things. Next, there's a period called the Awakening. That is generally characterized by spiritual seeking, a challenging of the norms. Think about Woodstock, think about the 60s and the 70s. Youth pushback to the status quo during that time. Following that, an unraveling. This should sound familiar to folks. This time period is usually characterized by growing distrust, lack of community, a laissez-faire attitude towards the welfare of others. Millennials were born during the unraveling. Finally, then we generally have another crisis. And I think Strauss and Howe are saying COVID was that particular crisis. Was not associated with the war, but definitely was a period of all of us in this room sort of experienced a stoppage, really, of normal life. And that's what Strauss and Howe, that's how they would define a crisis. So they also, and this gets a little confusing, but I'm just going to introduce the terms. You all can research at your leisure. They've written 3 books. But they have names for the people that are born during each period. So during a high, so this would be the baby boomers that were born during the high after the war, they're called prophets. The Awakening, so this would be Gen X, they're called nomads, and there are reasons behind this. Unraveling, they're heroes, so that's our millennial. And the folks born during the crisis are called artists. Another criticism of Strauss and Howe is that it's a little woo-woo in that technical term, woo-woo. Every 80 years, there's some criticism that, wow, that seems to be a little mystical. But humanity has a way of developing along the same lines. And Jen, you were making a good point about, can you say that, because I'll get it wrong, about 80 years.
Yeah,
being a lifespan.
It has been a lifespan, and so as we kind of go through a generational cycle where we lose a generation, right, and a new one comes up, you lose the history because we're really also bad about preserving history, and so we kind of lose the lessons of the eldest generations, right, as we make the cycle around. Now, what's interesting now about this time and space is because we're living longer, and as you can see, we have. In 2 of the areas, we have generations, well, actually, Alpha isn't up here, but Alpha is with the boomers. So we're actually sharing space, which is different. And so we'll have to see how this kind of theory changes as we live longer and actually go past the 80-year cycle. And so I think another thing that's really important to think about the cycle is that we all contemporaneously live in the cycle at the same time. So, you know, I'm 44 in this cycle, and my daughter is 14 in the cycle, and we are experiencing the same things, but just with different perspective and mindset because we're in different generations. You know, she's a child in the generation versus me as an adult and leader in a generation, right? And so as we kind of move through, so saying things like, well, when I was 14, like, no, I wasn't 14 in 2024. And so that's the kind of thing we have to kind of think about, and we'll talk about generational empathy towards the end.
Right. I think this theory is really helpful with mindset and with parenting. I think this can be helpful on both the professional and personal front. Okay?
So we just want you to take a second with your table mates and discuss the two theories. What one do you buy? Which one sounds like it works for you? And then really thinking about tech, because we spent a lot of time today actually here talking about technology. What are you seeing? What are you seeing that kind of in the generational space in tech? So as younger generations are coming in versus our silents and boomers who are still around the workplace, how are we kind of engaging around tech? So thinking more about that twinge theory. So just a few minutes, talk to your neighbors.
How are we doing on time?
We're okay. Did your table like better? What theory seemed to resonate more with you? Did you like the Strauss and Howe event cycle, or do you think technology is really what's driving generational change? What do we think? Who likes Strauss and Howe? Raise your hands. The major events, the cycle. Who thought that one was better? Strauss and Howe. Who liked the Strauss and Howe model better?
Strauss and Howe model.
Okay. Who thought it was more the technology-driven theory, the changes in tech? Let me do it again, because there wasn't enough hands. All right, who liked the Strauss and Howe model with the major events cycle? Who thought that one resonated more about why we see generational change? Okay. And
why did that resonate? Does somebody have a reason? Did you? Yes. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yes, so I the Strauss model, and I just thought about like humanity, and I on my social media right before the pandemic in 2020, I got the reminder about the pandemic, the bird flu training we were going through, and that we were overdue for a 100-year pandemic. And so I feel like humanity drives, so it makes sense. And then with the technology, I feel like it's like our creativeness that drives, our need for efficiency that drives the creation of the technology.
Any other thoughts? All right. And what about the second kind of question? Did you guys talk about technology in the workplace and how you're seeing that shift? Did you get there or no? Just talked about the other models. We're going to give you a lot of time. That's all right. We'll move through it. All right. So we're going to shift into talking about what happens in the workplace. And we're going to play a game. And so I need a member of the boomer generation, just maybe two, if you want to come up to the front and get up on the stage. If you're a member of the boomer generation, I would love to have you participate. And it's a real simple, fun game. You're just going to come up. I need two Gen Xers.
It's easy.
And I need two millennials and Gen Z. You have a short pool to draw from here. So two of you want to come up. and just stand up on the stage. We're going to play a quick game called Generational Gestures. You might have seen this game on TikTok. So I need some help real quick. Jump up on stage. Yeah, you. I'm sorry. All right, I got my Gen Zers.
Gen Zer got up before everybody.
Okay, I need some. I got a millennial.
Thank you.
And millennial. Okay, I need 2 boomers and 2 Xers. I got an Xer. Xer?
Yeah,
Got 2
okay.
Xers.
Boomer.
Come on, baby boomers. You're here. You told me you were here on this.
There we go.
All right. Okay, so we're going to play the generational gesture game, and all you're going to do is I'm going to ask you to make some gestures, and you're going to just do it, and we're going to see. Are you boomer? Wait, I need one more. Okay, wait, is there one more boomer? Hey, Mr. Chairman, will you come play? You already disclosed you're a boomer. He's eating. Oh, you're going to play? Okay, he's coming. All right, awesome.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So we're going from our senior generations over to our younger Gen Zer generations, so we're going this way. All right, so all you're going to do is make the gesture as I tell you, okay? Are you ready? I would like you to take a picture. How would you gesture taking a picture? How would you gesture answering a phone? Oh, they didn't do it. Okay, and how would you hang up the phone? You're all gonna do it. We need some littler ones. They would just be like, okay. How would you make a heart with your hands? A heart with your hands.
Okay, I just want to point out these guys were not at a Taylor Swift concert. Okay, and
We've watched this too many times. Yeah.
Did you notice when they came up, they shook hands with each other? That was very nice. Yeah.
All right, open a car window. Open a car window. How would you open a car window? Do your favorite dance move. Let's see your favorite dance move. No dancers. They're like, we don't dance. And if we were taking a group photo, how would you pose? If I was like, well, strike a pose. How would you take a group photo?
Striking a pose to take a picture.
Yeah. And lastly, how would you start your car?
Start your car.
All right, so if we had some little kids, if you have little kids, you know that the hearts look way crazy. And I can't even do it with my fingers. And you'll see the further we go, they didn't do it because they're more senior Gen Zers. But the younger Gen Zers would be total like pushing buttons. That's all they do is push buttons. They'd be over here. So here's my question to you. I gave one instruction, right? Everybody was like, oh yeah, I can open a window. I can take a picture. But we got different results depending on our generation, right? Who's wrong? But at work, doesn't it feel like somebody's wrong? So this represents the generational conflict that happens at work, right? Thank you. Let's give our participants a hand for being great. Thank you. So at work right now, we have 5 generations in the workforce. This is our projected 2025, so in just a few years. So we have our Gen Zers that are in the workplace right now, and our youngest Gen Zers are, they're kind of in the range of between like 9th and 11th grade, depending on the year you think they stop, okay? So some of them could be interns, if you have high school interns or younger people working with you. And then the alphas are coming, okay? So right now, this is where our projections are. So you can see in a few years where you're going to be on this chart. But we know that generational conflict is probably actually one of the biggest pinpoints that is causing problems in the workplace, not just here in this country, but all over the country. And a lot of that is due to many reasons that you probably know. I want to have us watch this video, and we're going to just watch it.
Okay, it's time now for our last call. A 20-something's TikTok video is going viral. Brielle is a recent college graduate, and she's working at her first job. And just like that Dolly Parton song, this 22-year-old is talking about the stresses of working a 9-to-5. Take a listen.
I get on the train at 7:30 and I don't get home till like 6:15 earliest, and then like I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I can't even imagine the working parents out there, and like I give so much grace to them because it's incredibly hard in America to be emotionally and mentally stable when your days are structured like that.
So I want to bring back our panel now, Mike, Barbara, Heidi, and LZ. First of all, I love that she gave a shout out to working parents out there. Mike, a lot of people really supported her video here. What's your take?
I think it's awesome. I'm all for reimagining the work week, not necessarily from the context of how she's framing it, but I am in favor of reimagining the 40-hour work week. Can we reduce it to 4 days out of the week, working possibly 12 hours, that we can have that 3-day weekend to relate to self-care?
Right, the 410s, 412s. Heidi, what say you?
Well, I think it's all about productivity. I think there's this idea that you get more work out of somebody when you work them 5 days a week than if you worked them 4 days a week. And so American business need to understand the clear message that productivity matters more than time.
Right, and LZ, you know, so many of these kids grew up in this environment where you could work remotely, so the working in person is a little bit different to them.
Listen, I'm trying to figure out who the hell can work 9 to 5. I don't know anyone that works 9 to 5. I know people that work like from 6 to 8, 7 to midnight. My son doesn't work 9 to 5. None of my friends work. She's blessed. She doesn't even know it. She's working 9 to 5, 40 hours? Please, sign me up for that.
Thank you. I'd like to give LZ extra points. Barbara, what's your take on this? I can't hear her. Oh, there you are.
Post-COVID, everyone's working alternative schedules, and I think, lots of companies have experimented with that, and I think it's great, and I think we should. So, power to companies that are trying different alternative work schedules and different ways to work. That's the new way to work.
I don't know, Barbara, though, if you can't get your mic working, you're going to have to come into the office. I appreciate you all so much. LZ, I'm taking you to the next contract negotiation. That's it for our last call. I'm Kata Whitworth. Please follow us on ABC.
All right, so you're going to talk about this video. And I don't want you just to focus on the Gen Zer who was struggling with the idea of a 9 to 5. I want you to also think about what you just saw, the news, those 5 people. I want you to tell me what generations you think they're in by the way that they just spoke about the concerns that were raised by our youngest working generation. And I want you to talk about that in your tables because this is real. This literally is what is happening, right? Right now in the workplace. We have a young generation who does not, coming through COVID, does not have the same idea of what a workday should look like and feel like in balance with a personal life, right? So I would love for you all to talk about this. I want you to tell me what you think the generation is of the anchors, the news people, and talk about this idea of the 9 to 5 in your work tables. Go ahead. represented? What generations did you think that the anchors represented, the news reporters? They clearly were not Gen Z. What generations do you think that they were? Who thought that they were boomers? Who thought that they were maybe Gen Xers? Okay, based on what they were talking about. Millennials, did you think any of them were millennial? Maybe? You know, I think some of their comments definitely highlighted kind of this idea too about what each generation wants, values, and needs in a workplace. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Share some thoughts, a couple thoughts, the conversations at your table about this idea about the 9 to 5 and what you're seeing and what kind of things are you doing in your workplace around that. Who wants to share? We're getting it. The mic's coming.
So one of the things that we were discussing is we work at the health department. Our regular business hours are 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. To Gen X, that is fantastic. That's a wonderful work week. Retirement, great benefits. To our younger millennials and our Gen Zs that are coming in, that's not enough. 8 to 4, Monday through Friday is not enough for them. They want other options. Retirement, a 25-year-old is not going to come in and give a crap about retirement. They just don't. What else, what can you offer me right now? What's going to benefit me right now? And that's what we're struggling with some hiring. Trying to change policy to reflect what these younger generations want and need in a work environment.
So let me ask you this, since you have the mic there, and your table can help you answer this since I'm putting you on the spot. Why do you think that is? This, I need it right now, and I need more than just this one option of an 8 to 4.
Part of it is technology. Yeah, they have that right in front of them. I can find it right now. 3 different restaurants in a walking distance. Instead of, okay, we have to drive 50 miles to get to the one place that we like to eat.
Can we get a mic over there? Sorry. It's just because they're filming it, and I can hear you. It's just that they want everyone else to hear you later.
I think it's because they work to live, not live to work. I mean, me too.
What about some of the comments that she was making? Now, they did a lot of cutting on this video. If you go watch the original, she actually made 2 posts, and she has a lot of like curse words and things, so that's about as good as you could cut that. But if you go back and listen to the things that she's talking about, she does mentioning a lot of mental health, not feeling like she has time to do other things, including date. She feels like, you know, she has to go take a train, so the commute is added in. And I know that as you were watching it, and to be honest, the first time I watched it too, I laughed. I'm like, that's not the real world, baby. But then we just did COVID, right? We could see. COVID.
I think we had the conversation that we could see where it came from. And actually, that's one of our sort of aha moments, is really seeking first to understand where that comes from. I had an interesting conversation with Mia is Gen Z, so she's a junior, and she's a very practical college junior. She just came off of an internship this summer. Great internship. She's a journalism major down at OU. She had an internship at NBC4 this summer. But I was a little worried about sending her into the workplace, and none of you better say a word to her that I'm telling you this story. She would be really mad. But one thing, she came home to me, and we were talking about how you get a promotion, and I don't really know how you get promoted in journalism. I know higher ed and other things, K-12, but I said, well, when I was in my 20s, I did the job and then got promoted. Right? And I'm getting some nods, right? I had taken on the responsibility without the pay or the title. I was doing it because my boss left. We've all been there, right? And she looked at me like I was nuts. And it was one of those moments across a generation that I realized, wow, we're really undergoing a change here. And that young lady was part of it. She absolutely was. And we're going to need to figure out how to talk that through.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two comments. First, to address that, though, and I'll say this. We have a lot of employees in my organization from the older generations who aren't supervisors who evince that same attitude, or are supervisors and not managers, and are like, that's above my pay grade. So I've heard that a lot, and I've never found, I don't think that's tied. I think high performers are gonna go out, go after the job, and then get it after, and other people are gonna do what they get paid for. But I'll say this about the Gen Z, and I had the advantage of taking a break from my career and spending 4 years just as a frontline supervisor at a Starbucks. And so I got to work with a ton of Gen Z. They have and I'm cusper, right, 1979. They have way more going on in their lives than I ever did. And so when she's like, how do you do 9 to 5? She's not talking about she's including like all these extra social obligations. Everything is more difficult for them because life is so much more now. And we're like settled, so we just handle that as it comes, but they're coming right out into their youth, into this insanely fast-paced environment.
And another thing about that, just to tie in, it's something we actually talked about when we talked about social media. So, and I'd love my Gen Z to kind of confirm this. I mean, you guys are a little bit, you're at the older range of Gen Z, but unlike people that were not native on these platforms, that is actually not an identity. We don't have that as social media is not part of our identity. And so what I mean by that is you know, younger generations, that is really part of who they are in their life. If you take that away, they like will, it's like major, right? And so we talked about like, oh no, you can't do social media at work, right? That was advice. Mark said that to us. It's good policy to have, like don't do it on work time. But it's like this fluid nature of it, right? Social media is actually part of who we are every day, and like inundated. You're inundated so much, like constantly. It's never off, right? I'd love to hear some comments from our Gen Z. I look right at you because you're like, and there's a couple back there. What are your thoughts about that? Can you help us?
Like not having social media?
Yeah, like what do you think about social media and just how that works at work and in your life?
It's hard because my boss and I follow each other on Instagram, and I have one coworker who's my age, and we talk to each other on.
Say that again, that was interesting.
My boss and I actually follow each other on social media, and I know like our CEO follows some people on social media too.
Mark.
But it is weird because like my one coworker who's a year older than me, like we follow each other on like almost everything, and we'll like talk on like different platforms. We'll text, we'll Teams, we'll like Snapchat, we'll like DM, like so. It is weird how I just integrate it into everything.
It's integrated, right? It's not like this side thing, like I'm bad. I do it at night, like before I go to bed, like I'm just scrolling, like it's mindless, right? But I don't integrate it like daily. And then I was telling Laura, I tried to take my daughter's phone away, and she got to high school, and like that's literally how the teachers are communicating with them on Instagram. I'm like, that's not true. Yes. And they like literally got I was like, here's all the links and I'm like, oh my gosh. Neil? So I'm gonna throw this up. Go ahead, Neil. We're starting to get into the challenge points, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move us forward.
So I was born in 1968, and there were probably some days in the mid-90s when I felt the way that girl felt. And if I felt that way, I probably would have called a friend, but it wouldn't have been on social media, and it wouldn't have been available for NBC News to make fun of.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
And it was a choice to put it on social media, but she was very sweet. You guys should watch the video. I mean, she learned some things, and there was a lesson there. But you're right. I often think about, I am really glad there was no Facebook. I mean, I don't want to remember some of my days. Some of them I do, but their lives are documented in a different way than ours are.
So you've identified a lot of these challenge points that generational conflicts kind of comes to play in the workplace. So it's work style and skills. So that's, tech skills, what we're coming in native, what we've had to learn, the ability to learn new tech, right? We have workplace values, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But why are we at work, and what do we care about work? What are we doing at work? What is it? What's the value of work to us? Well, we talked a lot about style and communication differences and preferences. And so, whether you want to be Teams versus you want a phone call versus you want it in writing versus you want a face-to-face. I mean, some of that is very personal, but it is also generational because it's the tech and the technology and the way that you were used to doing things. And then challenge versus opportunity. When stuff gets hard, how do we do it? And a lot of times this comes out with a reflection of work ethic and how we're judging each other on work ethic. There's a couple things in the earlier sessions that I want to also point out. We were talking today with Mark and Audie, and we were talking about trying to make sure we have really good, they called it high trust environments, where we're creating this high trust environment and how we need to treat people like adults. Audie told us that. Depending on what generation you're in, that idea of an adult is different. Right? Just like she's nodding her head, everybody. Just like we did the gesture game, right? So it can't just be we treat people like adults. We have to understand what that actually means, right? We have to understand what that means to one another. We also talked about memes, the power of a meme. And we were talking about social media, and someone over here had a really great comment, like, I have to help people understand that a meme is not just funny, it actually communicates something. Well, memes and emojis and slang, I don't know. You'll see some Gen Alpha in a minute. It all truly has meaning. It isn't just funny. And so understanding what the different generations are doing in the communication is really, really important. And that's causes a lot of generational conflict. So we actually had in many of our sessions today talking about conflict at work, that putting that generational lens over it is really important. Like just remembering that piece and how each generation kind of thinks about it. Whoops. Oh, well, somebody already started. So here's our second poll really quick. Let's talk about when you think of going to work, what do you consider it? Do you consider it an obligation, a career, a job, a means to an end, or flexible within my life? Only one choice. What do you think when you think of going to work? Is it an obligation? It's a career, a job, a means to an end, or flexible within my life? We can't see that last one. Looks like we got a lot of career, job, means to an end. All right, as those are coming in, so each one of these kind of is the profile of a different generation. So you might not match your generation after I tell you, so you know what you picked. So here's our generations, and here's this value of work. And this, again, is a lot of, like, if you go back to those videos we watched at the beginning, and you listen to each of them, traditionals is also silent, it's the same generation, and you listen to as they were talking about career, especially the boomers, if you think about what they were saying, you have a different value about, or different kind of idea about work is. And then you also have a different value about what makes your life happy and successful. And so this is also where we have conflict, because if I value work as my career, and that's the way I look at it, I'm at one employer my entire life, and I understand the hierarchy, and I believe in the hierarchy, and I trust in the hierarchy, and I know that you got to work up, and that's what I'm going to do. When someone comes in who's like, I'm going to be here for like a year, and whatever, I'm going to just, my idea is that I really want to contribute on a broader global perspective about solving an issue. And you're like, no, who's going to be my successor? That's what a lot of my boomer clients are asking right now. They spent their whole life in a career, and they are so afraid about retirement because they look at young millennials and Gen Z and they're like, they don't want to be here. So this idea about what work is and the value that we're actually striving towards. And so as we kind of think through this, these challenges, we have to also kind of bring back to like, how do we kind of solve through it? And there's a lot of things. You can look online, you can look at a lot of HR articles, and they'll tell you like, consider a flexible work week, try different policies. Laura and I talked about this a lot, and I think it really comes down to this idea of generational empathy. Let's just take a second and understand, right? Understand that we all live in the contemporaneous space, right? And the things that we had growing up were different, and that shapes who we are. And we all want and need different things in the work environment. And if we just can start there, maybe we won't laugh at the Gen Z girl who's saying that 9 to 5 is too hard. Because truth, I'm a consultant now. I don't work 9 to 5. I can work whenever I want. And I love it. And I went, before 19 years in state government, I was 8 to 5 doing my commute, But we have to have empathy. And then we also need to have psychological safety in the workplace to be able to talk about it with each other, to have different generations be able to share their perspective and not laugh at them, right? So these two concepts are really important. Creating generational empathy and having a space of psychological safety so we can really work through the conflict. This is just one dimension of our human variety, generations. And I would not be a good former state EEO coordinator if I also didn't tell you that there are EEO implications as part of this, because it's age. So we can talk about okay boomer, and that can be an age discrimination complaint. And even though Gen Zers have no legal right under 40, it's still not nice, right? And it could violate other harassment or bullying policies in your workplace. So these are really important key things that sometimes we don't think about in terms of age and generation and the way that we talk about things in the workplace. I'm excited to turn it back over to Laura to close us out so you can learn about our youngest generation who are not yet in the workplace, but who knows a Gen Alpha? Okay, hopefully you are going to enjoy this little quick video.
What are your thoughts on millennials?
I mean, it's pretty fire. I wish I could go back and meet some of my ancestors.
What?
The drip wasn't as good.
What does drip mean?
Like style. Yeah, like if you see me right now, you say a drippier.
If you want to call somebody cool, what would you say? Like
probably like mad lit on God or something.
What? Mad lit on God?
Yeah,
like G-O-D?
Yeah, mad lit on God, no cap.
Mad lit on God, no cap. Nailed it. Nope.
Okay, so Gen Alpha has introduced a lot of new language into society, I guess. How many of you know what brat means? A couple of you know what brat means? Anybody? Kamala is brat. See, that means cool, basically. Skibbity, Ohio is not a good thing. There's a lot. This particular generation is very creative as far as language. But let's talk a little bit about them. Jean Twenge calls this group the polars, and it's short for polarization. She believes that the biggest thing that they're going to be affected by is the polarization within that they were born into, political. 3 pervasive things. Now, there are touchstones, but I want to start with 3 pervasive things that these kids will never know the world without. Obviously, technology. They are immersed, just like Gen Z. They grew up, they will never know the world without the Black Lives Matter movement, the Me Too movement, the disability rights movement, the LGBT movements. They will not see the world in binaries because they were introduced to a world that challenges binaries. And they, most importantly, will never know the world without a pandemic. Most of these kids endured some early Gen Zs endured high school online, maybe graduated from college online. And most of these little ones, some started to learn to read online, had kindergarten online. My kids were juniors and 8th grade at the time. There's a disagreement about the start of this generation. They point to 2012, 2013, because iPads and cell phones kind of hit peak ownership during that time. 2010 was when the iPad was introduced. So we can make some predictions. The oldest alphas are entering 9th grade right now, which is Mila, which is Jen's daughter. And it is the generation that is going to, let's see, I'm sorry, I lost myself here. That's fully encapsulated by technology. The predictions are that they will have 50% will reach college degrees. Most of the jobs don't exist that they will work in, and we've heard that for the past maybe 15, 20 years. They are particularly close to their families, which is a result of COVID. They are a generation that is nicer to each other, we think, but I think that's true. I think that they are more compassionate and empathetic. They are not interested in being labeled themselves, but they do have a sensitivity to if you label another person. So that is something to keep in mind. They have an interest in climate awareness. There is an emphasis on downsizing and not underconsumption, if you've seen that trend. Global perspective, the ability to travel and learn about other things online. And this will be the generation that will make America a truly multiracial society. There will be, the census has started measuring folks that are multiracial. It went from 9 million in 2010 to 38 million, I believe, in 2020. So the research about screen time in this generation is unequivocal. We know that the dopamine hits that kids get online, they're affecting their brains. If any of you are interested in that particular research around social media, there's a whole book called The Anxious Generation that was just released. We are seeing more mental health issues in our schools. Colleges are full of them right now. That is the number one. I have colleagues that work at Ohio State, and that is the number one concern right now is mental health issues. I know we're getting down to
just one last thing. I think as we kind of turn back into this kind of cycle of this younger generation, Laura touched on it really quickly. A lot of the generations, you also have to look at that parent-child relationship and remembering that the parents of this generation are going to be millennials, mostly millennials. And the choices that they're making as parents, even compared to like the Gen Z parents, is a more restrictive tech stance. And definitely more rules and more monitoring of what's going on. And I'm a perfect example. My daughter, grew up COVID, 10 years old, she got a cell phone. I'm never doing that again. My son will not get a cell phone at 10. No, because it's crazy. And as parents, right? And so we're making different choices. And so that kind of parent-child dynamic, we didn't talk a lot about today, but that's something that actually Strauss and Howe, as well as Twinge, talk about. I see the chairman's up here, so that means our time is done. It was great being with